After March of 2020, the way that people view life and business has been forever changed. The way that entrepreneurs and business owners have approached business since 2020, March of 2020, has been forever changed. And if you're still trying to use antiquated or old business models to succeed in 2024 and beyond, using models that were barely working leading up to 2020, you're going to be in a world of trouble. There's going to be a lot of struggle, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, really a lot of people are experiencing a lot of angst and anxiety. And it's because there's been a fundamental shift in the way of life and business since March of 2020. I'd been talking about it and writing about the slowing down of, first broken business models leading up to it. I'd written about in my report, How to Be a Black Entrepreneur in the New World Order. I wrote in there about the end of globalization, and it was slowly ending before March of 2020. But when the pandemic hit, it put the nail in the coffin of globalization. It put the nail in the coffin of old antiquated business models where there was just free flowing money and people were just buying any and everything. And there was a coach on this corner, coach on that corner, any idea you could come up with and just put it out into the marketplace. People had this disposable income that they would just zap it up. And all you gotta do is look at your own buying habits. Many of us, all of us participated in that. Some of us bought things in 2019, 2020, probably back to 2018 that we haven't even used. We got courses stored on our hard drives and all of these different things. But March of 2020 brought all of that to a screeching halt. And so again, you can get my report. The link will be somewhere up under the video where I go into detail about the end of globalization. But it's so important to bring that up because all of the activities, the behaviors and the mindsets that we had prior to that time, they no longer exist, or at least if they exist, that's where we see all of this struggle, right? Yeah, because we're trying to fit. Yeah, I used to hear my mentor say it all the time. You're trying to put old keys in new locks. You're trying to unlock new doors with old keys, and it's just not working. And so there's a lot of things that are happening. So you have old business models, antiquated business models that don't work. You had the pandemic, which sent the entire world into a frenzy. And that's being very polite, saying a frenzy. Globalization. And when we talk about globalization, we don't have enough time in this video. The topic is so broad, but we're talking about trade routes, nationalism with different countries, currency. There's so much that goes into that all of that is shifted. And here we are, especially, I love to speak to Black entrepreneurs. We're not even factoring in none of this. And we're wondering why we're struggling. Brother Bedford, why am I struggling? Well, have you considered, the pandemic, buying habits, inflation, AI, 2 wars, rising costs, probably the spreading of wars, weather that has been damaging the country and different parts of the world. And if you're just putting your head in the sand saying, oh, well, none of this affects me. But then when you do raise your head, when it's time to get that money, when it's time to make a sale, when it's time to do something with your business, you're like, well, what's happening? Well, there's all of these factors that are happening that we have to begin to pay attention to. I mentioned inflation, this whole money issue. This is why Bitcoin and all of this is going up and down, and it's going crazy, and it's been going like that for the past few years. Um, a lot of this has its root since 1944. There was an economic order that was established after World War II, where the United States became the empire that it is today. I mean, just to kind of put it bluntly. And the economic order that was established, tying all of the other economies of the world to the US dollar, by the dollar being the reserve currency of the world, that had tremendous ramifications, and the military complex promising to protect the different trade routes and everything all over the world. All of this was as a result of World War II and the splintering of the different nations behind the United States, and then Russia at that time. And now you see all of these different things have come to an end, and Russia is at war with Ukraine, and there's the threat of spreading across Europe, and all of these different things have caused a paradigm shift in the way that we should be thinking, the way that we should be behaving, the activities that we should be incorporating into our lives as entrepreneurs and business owners. And I would be remiss of my duties if I didn't start talking about this in the way that I know how, and the way that I believe that I should be talking about these things, because it's very significant, because this genie is not going back in the bottle. There's not going to be cheap money just, swashing around the globe that you can have. Now, it's going to be plenty of money, but it ain't going to be cheap, right? Energy costs, right? Transportation, labor, what it costs to have things made and shipped, supply chains, all of these things. If we don't begin to address them, and begin to address them in an intelligent and in a more sophisticated way, a lot of us are going to be in trouble. So I heard one person say one time, and I can't remember exactly who it was, say one of the hardest jobs to do is to think. And most people really don't want to do that, right? It's the hardest job to do, is to start thinking through this maze of high energy costs, high money costs, high labor costs, high transportation costs, wars, the you want to talk about technology advancing. Look at the advance, how fast, how rapidly the technology of artificial intelligence is spreading, or is changing and morphing right in front of our eyes. And can you imagine that some of us as entrepreneurs and business owners, we don't even have that on our radar. We have none of this on our radar, and we're wondering why we can't get the sale. We're wondering why our offers are not resonating. It's so, all of these factors means that we have to think, we have to become, so think about it this way. And I'll close out the video, because this is really like, I really just wanted to make the statement that old business, let me just sum it up this way. Old business models will not work anymore. So we have to begin to think of new business models. The old world order, the old economic order, it's no longer existing. All of that changed and began to shift in March of 2020. So that means we have to think of this now, is that this new world order that we're entering into, it's technically 4 years old. So it's almost like an infant, right? At 4 years old. So can you imagine how you were at 4 years old? You were curious, you're excited, you wanted to build relationships and play with the other children, right? You wanted to go outside, you were curious, you wanted to peek over here and see what was happening there. You wanted to get involved in something. You just wanted to, and this was the natural inclination, the natural desire for you to want to know, to be curious, to explore, to build relationships, to expand your thinking. Even though you weren't saying, I'm 4 years old, you weren't saying, I'm expanding my thinking, but that's exactly what was happening. You were learning your colors, you were learning language, you were learning shapes and sizes. So you were learning so many different things at 4 years old. That's the posture that we have to take now. We have to become 4 years old again and become very curious and excited about what we're naturally talented and gifted at. And then we want to begin to link up with other people who, they're discovering their natural talents and their gifts. And we want to become curious as to what's happening in the world, but not curious in a way that brings us so much stress and anxiety. There's a way to do this where we shouldn't be concerned or worried or anxious about the outcomes. That happens when we don't see enough future. When you're 4 years old, you're curious and you begin to see possibilities. And that's what's happening with a lot of us, is that we're running out of future. And so if we can't see the future, we hang on to the past, and the past is getting eaten up, or it's like an albatross around our necks, and it's not allowing us to see the future for what it truly is, or what it's shaping up to be. And we're having issues. And so as we move forward into the New World Order, first heard that term by first Bush many years ago. We have to become curious again. We have to become students again. We have to want to learn again. We have to begin to engage again. We have to want to think again. Now, if you're sitting there saying, "Oh, Brother Beverly, I don't want to think. Why I gotta be that hard? I don't want to think. I don't want to do this. I don't. See, now you're acting like a spoiled 4-year-old. And if you're thinking like that, the only thing that I can say is, welcome to the New World Order. This is your brother Bedford. We're going to be going into all of those issues, those points that we brought up in future videos. So I guess you could call this kind of an introduction or a preamble to the introduction of what we're going to be talking about in the future as it relates to becoming successful entrepreneurs and business owners in this new world. So this is your brother Bedford. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.